Alrighty, class. Moving forward with some more discussion regarding access and egress, what a ramp should look like. This would be in a perfect world if you had a structural ramp, but you could also consider it, as well, just as well if you used a dirt or an earth ramp, so long as all of your requirements are met, so long as employees are not exposed to the hazards of a cave-in while entering or exiting, and your distances are correct. The 25 feet lateral distance at 4 feet or greater in depth using some sort of ramp or ladder system for access and egress in all trenches and excavations. Looking at this slide, thinking about and just looking at the ladder among many other hazards, how many hazards could potentially be here on this particular slide? Just one glaringly obvious one, just based on what we discussed and what we've gone over thus far. The ladder, of course, not having the proper inclination, an excavator sitting right on top of the trench, using some form of shield panel, what it looks like, in order to support the weight of that excavator. And we will probably cover this a little bit further when we get to paragraph 652 and the requirements for protective systems and why this is not, absolutely not allowed in excavations. Now, regarding the extension ladder use and it being conductive or non-conductive, being of fiber or aluminum, nothing in the standard says you can't use an aluminum extension ladder. The only thing you have to be considerate of is if you are working in an area where there is a likelihood of contact with live lines, then of course you'd likely have to use a fiber or fiberglass ladder. And in many cases, if you're working for a client or a particular customer, they may prefer that you use all fiberglass in order to mitigate that risk, period. So it really depends, but nothing in the standard says it, and neither does it say it in subpart X. When we start looking at the extension ladder use, typically how we're going to use this is that for every foot the ladder extends up, you have to have at least 25% extending from the base. So say if this is an 8-foot excavation, 8 feet, you'd have to have a minimum of 2 feet extension. Now this is given if you have a ladder that's non-self-supporting, and even in that case, OSHA does, as part of subpart X, it states that you have to secure the ladder through some sort of mechanism at the top and ensure that the ladder does not slip or slide, and that essentially prevents an employee from slipping or falling as they're using the ladder, or the ladder slipping from underneath them, as you can probably look on YouTube and see a gazillion videos regarding that. And that's also one of the reasons why you can't use a step ladder, because step ladders do not have the feet or that support, that non-slip base, to where it's safe for an employee to use it as a lean-to, such as an extension ladder. Another example, and I have a few of these, this would be more of a self-supporting ladder example, specifically designed for trench box use, to where the ladder itself, and let me use this one, where the ladder itself is actually self-supported through this clamp system and these feet on the base of the ladder. It also contains the 3 feet above the landing surface requirement with these handrails for employees to use in order to safely exit. Now another consideration, and this is later on down the line in this paragraph, specific excavation requirements regarding fall protection. This excavation, looking like just off from a dead stare or eyeballing it, looks like about 16 to 18 feet in depth. Obviously there is a risk or a hazard in an employee slipping or falling from this ladder and it potentially becoming a fall protection hazard. That's something where the competent person would have to use good discretion and determine if they want to have that employee tied off in some way to prevent that. If it is a high probability that it could happen, then definitely that's something the competent person might want to include in their plan. But in most cases, as far as access and egress goes, this ladder eliminates the requirement to have that 25% angle or lean to in order to make it safe. It has all those requirements, it's self supporting, and it has the 3 feet above the landing surface requirement as well. A very good option, especially when you're working in tight trench and excavation spaces, or in some cases, like in this photo, where you're working in really deep excavations and there may be a structure or something here inside of the excavation that would prevent you from using an extension ladder where you needed that 25% extension from the base.